Hello and welcome. We're very pleased to have Vincent Versace with us today here at Google. He's been a longtime friend of ours, and he'll be talking about photography. That's what we're here for. The title of his presentation is "The Lens is the Brush, the Camera is the Canvas, and the File is the Sheet Music, and the Print is a Symphony." So all these things come together to create a beautiful final image. Vincent has a long line and list of accolades, and I can't possibly go through all of them. I'll just kind of pinpoint a few, and Vincent, if I miss anything, you can jump in there. Okay. He's been recognized as a pioneer in the art and science of digital photography. He has been a recipient of the Computerworld Smithsonian Award in Media Arts and Entertainment, as well as a permanent collection in the Smithsonian Institute's Museum of American History. Vincent has been highlighted in all the major magazines for photography, many photography magazines. And he's also really well known for some of his best-selling books. He has one called "From Oz to Canvas, Almost Every Black and White Technique Known to Mankind," and "Welcome to Oz 2.0, The Cinematic Approach to Digital Photography in Photoshop," and he has several others. Vincent has a brilliant mind. If you ever have a chance to talk and listen to him, you're in for a real treat as you are today. So, Vincent, thanks very much and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I love coming to a place where, no matter where I am, I feel like the absolute dumbest kid in the room. This place is the way in which every little detail is thought of. It's gotten to the point where, of course you did. It's great. You live in heaven here. And make the best orange shortbread cookies I have ever had. So where's the HR person? Because you could just pay me in cookies. I'm okay. I'm easy that way. So what is it that you would like to get from me? What is your expectation of this interaction besides a fancy-ass title? Life story, how I get from here to here to there to this, how I get this to look like this while translating this from this to this, and why that affects this to this to that comes over here. How'd I do?
We're done.
Thank you very much. Right place, right time. How I became a beta tester was back in the day. There was a booth about this big in the photography area of Nikon, and there was nobody that was a professional that wanted to do digital photography because there was no way digital photography was ever going to take over film. And this poor guy that was there in this booth was one step out the door because nobody's going to buy an electronic camera. And the big photographers that were willing to do it wanted hundreds of thousands of dollars because any pictures that they took would be useless to them forever. And me, right out of college, went, I'll do it for the camera. And that's really right place, right time. And be willing to be paid in orange shortbread cookies. That's really what it comes down to. All right, so what I want to talk about, how it all interplays, because it all interplays. Everything dovetails into everything else. I'm going to start with passion in the photograph. The quickest way to take better photographs is to stop taking photographs. Let the photograph take you. Be taken by your pictures. It is not about, smile now, damn it. Okay, it is about that moment where you go, and as you're being grabbed, the journey is not this way. The journey is this way, and as you're being ripped through that lens, watching cool things happen, the finger should be shooting. I shoot so much that according to my doctor, I have a stress fracture on this finger and these fingers. I couldn't figure out why my hand was killing me. And it's like, well, how much did you shoot when you were in Burma last? And I'm looking at it, I have 136,000 frames. His response was, perhaps shoot less. My response was, rebuild me. So the response, it has to be absolutely automatic. Things travel at the speed of life. And rather than noodling the photograph and concerning yourself about, did I get it right, forget that. What you need to get is you need to let the moment take you. You need to let the moment that moved you to the point where you are witnessing the most amazing thing be the impulse to fire. Things happen at the speed of life. And a camera captures things in fractions of a second. We see things in time and motion. A camera photographs things in fractions of a second. When adding up how much time I have spent in Burma, or India, or wherever, I just did this with Burma. When I was done, I was there for 2 weeks, and if you total up all the fractions of the seconds that I shot 2.5 minutes. But I was there for 2 weeks. I have stress fracture on my shooting hand. Why? It's a numbers game. Things happen at the speed of life. You set your camera up so that it can do all of the things that you don't want to worry about. Exposure, focus, those things. If you think about a D4, I shoot Nikon, so I'm going to speak in a Nikon metaphor. If you think about a D4 or D800, those cameras, those are the ultimate idiot-proof, or as we would like to refer in the computer business, an ID10T camera. Total point and shoot. Why? Because I am busy concerning myself about what is happening in front of my camera. I do not want to worry about what my camera is doing. To your question, how do you make technology better? You make it so that I can set it up and it does the things I need it to do based on my style. That there is some form of understanding of what it is that I'm shooting. One of the advantages of my system is the way in which its meter works, which is why I choose it. It's a three-dimensional light meter that's an RGB meter with 6.5 million pixel RGB meter that meters in 3 dimensions. It computes skin tone and backgrounds and things differently, so it exposes differently. Why? I don't want to be paying attention to all of that. I need to be paying attention to what? The moment as it unfolds in front of me. The photographer, or not the photographer, the architect, Mies van der Rohe said, an interesting plainness is the most difficult thing to achieve. You want to have blow you away pictures? Photograph interesting plainnesses, things that others walk by so that you create an image that stops the viewer the same way you were stopped. The conversation in a photograph is this. Ansel Adams was asked, well, how many people are in your photographs? And he said, well, me. No. The only thing I disagree with him on all of his quotes is the one person that doesn't belong in your photograph is you. And here's the reason why, in my philosophy of it. Things happen in the space between. Photograph doesn't happen over here and it doesn't happen over here. It happens in this space, the space between. In karate, the reason why you throw a punch and pull out fast versus planting it is that if you plant it, 90% of the force of the impact is left in the hand if it's there. If it comes in and pulls out, 90% of the impact is here. Where do you want the impact of your photograph to be? In the photograph. You want to create an image so that it's as if the person who is looking at it was standing in the same place that you were when the photograph took you. So if you can get to that point, that's a great place to be. Well, how do you get to that point? Would be a question to ask. Will we agree on that? Mr. Stuff, I'm about to tell you. How you get to that point is you understand the middle part of photography, forwards, backwards, upside down, sideways, and any other dimension, since we can talk string theory here, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And then at point of capture, promptly forget it. There's a concept in Japanese thought, in Zen Japanese thought, called Shibumi, which is the ability to have thoughtful, thoughtless thought, to do the right thing at the right time in the moment without consciously thinking about doing it. You simply be it. You simply do it. How you get there is through practice. There's a misnomer that practice makes perfect. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. You have to practice at practicing. One of the great sorrows I have as a teacher is I will go to exotic places with people, and I will do what I always do, which is, well, what would you like this conversation to be about? And somebody will say to me, well, I came here to learn how to use my camera better. How much money, time, and effort did you spend for buttonology lessons? When you walk into the hairball of photography, you need to know that camera as well as you know yourself. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. It's a great book on war. It's a great book on life. It's a great book on art. Know your camera as well as you know yourself. You will know the outcome of every photograph. Know your camera half as well as you know yourself. You get half the shots, you lose half the shots. Don't know your camera means you don't know yourself. You were truly lost. So where do you practice? You practice here, where it doesn't matter. You carry a camera with you everywhere you go. You drive your cat crazy, your significant other crazy, your kids crazy, your friends crazy. Why? Because you're crazy. You decided to do photography, right? I mean, there are many more things that one could do that would be less nuts-making than photography. I'll give you another question to ask you. When you look at somebody's work, right, do you know if it's good or bad? When you look at a picture, you can say, that's good, it's bad. I like it, I don't like it, right? You can do that. You can go through these pictures up here, and you will make judgments as to whether or not they are good or bad to your aesthetic, correct? Why can't you do that with your own work? Why can't you look at your own pictures and say, this is good, this is bad? Why is it all crap? Furthermore, why did you choose a hobby in which everything you do, you say to yourself is what? It's crap. Really? There are enough people to beat you up in the world. You do not need to assist. Your biggest critic sits in the same chair you do. I contend that no, it isn't crap. What the problems are is understanding stuff, technology. It is this interesting thing that we do with technology. We blame ourselves for the problems of the technology, and we blame the technology for problems that are ourselves. For example, a camera meters at 18% gray, right? That means that if I shoot a white wall and a black wall, and I let the meter do it, I'm going to get what? Two 18% gray walls. So we go out in this highly dynamic, highly lit environment, we take a picture and it comes out flat, and we say to ourselves, I suck. No, the camera meters at 18% gray. What sucks is the camera meters at 18% gray. So you change the way you expose because you understand the middle. Here's the way I look at it. You're traveling a circle, but you're going to do it in a straight line. Every decision you need to make about your photograph has to happen where? Moment of capture. The more you understand about the middle, the more informed your decision can be at the beginning, because you're in service of what? The end. The print. What's the print in service of? Your voice. Where does that happen? At the beginning. So it's this circle, but it's like taking a circle and making it a straight line. Now, one of the things that is important to understand is the first concept, the lens as brush. There is a reason when I pick up a 64-pound camera bag that I have in this, I always feel like I'm a Ringling Brothers clown and they're about to all hop out with this. There's a reason why I have a 200 millimeter, 70 to 200 f4.5, a 70 to 200 2.8, the 70 to 210 push-pull, a 24 to 120 nano, my new rocket motor, the 80 to 400, that's a beautiful piece of glass, the 70 to 300, well, I'm not done. Okay, 70 to 300, and the 28 to 300. You get a feeling that I nail 80 to 124. I absolutely nail that focal length. Why? Bokeh. It's pronounced bokeh. Okay, not Boca. Boca is a city in Florida, also known as God's waiting room. I told that joke in Florida. It did not go over. Bokeh is a very unique quality. It's the quality of blur. It's a harmonic that is caused by all the things in a lens that you don't want a lens to do. It's sort of like the Caesar salad dressing of optics. You laugh, Mr. Stuff. But Mr. Camera Person does not. Life Story wants to know, how does this apply? I'm a better cook than I am a photographer, but I will never be as great a cook as the great cooks that I know. So I spend a lot of time working with how food works. Caesar salad dressing. It's made up of anchovies. Strong, right? Raw garlic. Strong, right? Red wine vinegar. Strong, right? Coleman's hot mustard. Strong. Parmesan cheese. Strong. Olive oil. Not so strong. You put them all together, what do you get? A mild dressing. Why? Because each one of those things cancels each other out in a way in which creates a harmonic that, if it's done correctly, everything dovetails into everything else, and you have a smooth flavor. So all the things in a lens that you don't want have to be balanced in such a way to create something that you do want. For example, how many Nikon shooters do I have? That just makes my day. To you Canon shooters? It's been years coming, hasn't it? All right. This is a 70-210 D series lens. This is probably the lens I built my career on. Okay? This is the best portrait lens you will ever find. If somebody is silly enough to want to sell it to you, do them a favor and relieve them of it. Why? It has the best bokeh for portraiture I have ever seen. Linear objects, hair, stuff like that, tack sharp. Skin, perfectly smooth. Background, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful blend. Has to come down to why this matters with something called depth of field. My favorite definition of depth of field is Michael Reichman's, which is a circle of confusion is a bunch of photographers sitting around a table defining depth of field. So let's talk about depth of field and the illusion of depth of field. So let's agree on terms. What are the parameters of depth of field? Aperture, do we agree? Focal length, distance from the subject, and if you want more crap in focus, you stop the lens down, right? No. Focal length has nothing to do with it. Distance of the subject does, aperture does, and something called angle of view. All lenses have the same depth of field. Why a wide-angle lens appears to have a greater depth of field than a telephoto lens has to do with this. The smaller an object is, the more in focus it appears to be. The bigger an object is, the less in focus it appears to be. How many people shot film? Okay, for those of you who don't shoot film, I agree, film is what occurs in your teeth now when you don't brush. But back in the day, film, 35mm film, if you looked at a contact sheet, all the pictures would be in focus, right? Wasn't until you put it in the enlarger that all hell broke loose. Why? Because as you blew the image up, that's when you started to see the blur. The tighter the edge, the more in focus. The less coherent, the bigger it is, the less in focus it becomes. That's the first thing. Here's another proof. An 80mm lens on a 35mm camera is a telephoto lens, correct? Slight telephoto, but telephoto. If we call 50 normal, 80 would be in the realm of telephoto. An 80mm lens on a 2 1/4 camera is the normal lens, and an 80mm lens on a 4x5 view camera is a wide-angle lens. What changed? Angle of view. So, That's the first thing to keep in mind. I will get to why that matters in a second. The next one is the misnomer of if you stop the lens down, you get more things in focus. That is not true according to physics. Unless you can introduce my favorite word in photography, the Scheibenflug principle. Cool word, isn't it? Swings and tilts. Unless you can do this, if you're dealing with a fixed lens system, which is what this is, physics says that the only thing that is in focus is that which the lens is physically focused upon and anything that crosses the plane of focus. That means that anything from the plane of focus is the increasing area of acceptable out of focus. So it isn't in focus. Now, why we believe this to be true has to do with film. A lens, any one of these lenses here, is capable of resolving a minimum of 200 line pair. Okay, that's 200 black and white lines per centimeter. Film was between 150 and 170 line pair, which means that the lens has greater resolution than the film. With me so far? Silver paper was between 50 and 75 line pair. So the lens has greater resolution than the film, and the film has significantly greater resolution than the photographic paper, silver paper. So anything above 75 line pair will register as what? 75 line pair. So you have the illusion of more things in focus, but in reality what you have are more things at 75 line pair. Digital, the lens sees 200, the sensor sees 200, and high-end printers can print upwards of 300 line pair, which means that the output device has greater resolution than the file that you're sending it. So what are you going to see? Blur ramp. So this brings up a very interesting question, which goes back to yours, 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 and trust me when I tell you, yours. Trust me. Which is, what's your photograph more about? In focus or in blur? What do you worry about more? In focus or in blur? You worry about in focus, right? But only one thing in your photograph's in focus. So you're spinning your wheels worrying about less than 1% of the image, when most of your image is about the ramp of blur. Here's another one. You want 4 objects in a photograph in focus? What do you know you need? 4 photographs. Because you can't have 4 objects in focus in a digital camera because of the resolutions. Okay? The trick with the photograph is that when you're all said and done, it looks like you didn't do anything, and the person looking at your photograph will believe that they could go right out and shoot it. And at the same time, what you've done is that when they look at a flower, if you took a picture of a flower, for that much time, they see your flower, then they see the flower that they're looking at. How you accomplish this task and where pretty is in a photograph. And if you want to pick one of the great epiphany moments of my career visually to answer how do you do this, was when I realized that my photograph was more about the blur than it was about the focus. All lenses focus. That is what lenses do. That's their job. But it is how they handle from in focus to blur, which is where the pretty is. Are you making a seed packet photograph, or are you trying to make a piece of art? Are you putting something in the Encyclopedia Britannica or the Encyclopedia Americana or Wikipedia, or are you trying to make something that moves somebody? That's the question. If what you're trying to do is accurately document something, then, you know, focus stack the thing, put it in helion focus, make one big in focus photograph and call it a day. If what you're trying to do is to move the viewer's eye around the photograph and tell the story you want told, because you want to move the viewer in a certain way, then we're in a different realm, okay? And the more you understand the physics of this, the math, and what is a great thing for me is that I give this discussion quite a bit, and the fact that there's everybody in this room could probably correct me on my math really makes my day. So you have to understand how these work. For example, does light travel in a straight line? Not according to Einstein. Okay, according to Einstein, light bends. Light's both a wave and a particle at the same time. The reason why these lenses are designed the way they are is so that red, green, and blue hit the sensor at the same time. Nothing about the journey of light down this barrel is a straight line. It does move in a forward direction, but it doesn't move in a straight line. So natural light has a whole different set of things that it does, attributes, that strobe light doesn't. It's both ambient and directional at the same time. You can light in a ball. Hot light works the same way, which is why I tend to use those lights, that type of lighting, because it's prettier. It's also the more difficult and the simpler types of lighting to do at the same time. It requires a greater understanding of how light works to be able to shoot it, but it's everywhere. So what I look at when I look at these is the bokeh of the lens, how it handles blur. Apertures that I shoot at, I shoot wide open, I do portrait at 5.6, and I do landscape at f8 or f11, depending on where the critical aperture, which is where the light's most evenly distributed across the lens system, is. f22 does not give me the sharpest image. f22 gives me the greatest area of acceptable out of focus. So again, it's understanding your glass. It's like there's a borrowlenses.com? Rent some lenses. See how they work. Play with the blur. You will find prettier in the blur than you will in the focus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a slideshow in which when you see this, there will be no music if you watch this on YouTube, but you'll hear the music here. We will agree, this is a weapon system, right? Nothing says professional photographer high, anti-spontaneity than a camera like this, right? This is the ultimate point and shoot camera. I programmed the back for the parameters that I want it set for, okay? Color space, way I want it to white balance, how I want picture control to handle things, at what speed I'm going to shoot. I put this on aperture priority, and I have a focusing system that, okay? So it's not the little green button which decides everything for me. I decide before I walk in what it is that I think the environment is going to require from me. I also shoot in the raw, but not in the buff. Be very clear about that. That will get you arrested. The reason why I shoot in the raw is a raw file allows me to rebake a cake. The only thing that I can't undo is ISO and bad photography. Other than that, I can change everything. So I come up with a set of parameters that I think will fit, and I want to offload as much as I possibly can the things that I don't want to worry about, like exposure. I want this camera calling the ball whenever possible on exposure because it will do it better than I can, most of the time. I want this camera autofocusing because it will focus, because of these, right, sharper than I can, and quicker than I can. Because what I want to be doing is I want to be practicing on reacting to the moment. So that's why I picked this camera system, because the camera system allows me to set it up, and it's kind of my little green button. So did I connect that for you?
Yes.
Okay. So that I practice, and then the other thing that is important is like I can tell what's going on with my camera by the sound of the shutter. Okay? That's important. Like if I'm in a really dark room and I'm hearing click, 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 that's going ISO way too high, right? Or if you're outside in a bright day and you're just hearing that camera shoot off at an 8,000th of a second, that tells you you haven't done something correctly. So it's understanding the majority of what the menus do on the back and how to set it up is important. Again, it's understanding the system so completely that when you set it up, you don't have to worry about it, that you can hear by sound what is going on. That by the way in which the camera is shooting tells you that something is or is not correct on it. I always do something called VSE, visual search of extremities. When the camera is in the camera bag and I pull it out, the first thing I do is turn it on and just make sure everything is set right. Because there are gremlins that live in camera bags. And they turn the camera on, they push the buttons, and they turn it off. And all of a sudden, you don't know. Or somebody decides they want to look at your camera, they play with all your buttons. And I was out shooting in Burma, and somebody played with my camera and put it into JPEG. I don't know what's below garbage, yeah. And I'm shooting this picture, and it's like, bam, 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 and it's like, something's not right. And I shot this entire sequence of JPEG Basic in sRGB. And, you know, it was just like, really? Just a little closer, just a little closer. So this gets into the other part of it, which is camera as canvas. I have two D800s, a D600, and a D4. One D800 is balanced for infrared, or converted for infrared. And then I have the D600 and the D4, and a D800. Why would I possibly want to have that many different types of resolution in a camera? I don't want to shoot a portrait at 36 megapixels. That's like retouching an orange. That's hours of work. I want nice, smooth skin tone. I want to be able to shoot at very low light when I shoot a portrait. Why? Because lower light has a prettier quality. I want to shoot a landscape, so what am I going to shoot? I'm whipping out that D800, thank you very much. I have no idea what is going to face me when I go to shoot. What camera do I pick? D600. Why? 4000 ISO, no noise, 24 megapixels, no problem. Each camera is a different canvas that does a different thing. It's a different tool. And each one of these lenses combined with that creates a different look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a bunch of images in which what I would like you to see here first is my commitment to the moment, which is the things that move me. And you're going to see some of the infrared stuff as well, and we will get into that. And you're going to see a journey of my life, part of which is all the different places I go. Because you see, my photographs really are the snapshots of the vacation that is my life. I'm amazed that I get paid to do this. I'm happy I get paid to do this, but there's a different story than the photograph tells that the photograph, how do I put this? The photograph tells one story, but there's a different story behind each photograph. I'm going to tell you one story about one photograph after I show you this. So let's see if this works. proof that children are indeed born in cabbage patches. So what you should see is that there's a lot of use of blur in that photograph and a lot of use of focus. And the objects that I want you to have in focus, see are in focus. There's some other things that I do, which is I don't really pay too much attention to composition theory, particularly 17th century painting composition theory. Rule of thirds, Grecian mean. The center of the frame is for God, not you, or the center of the frame is the best place to put the object. You decide. What I pay attention to is the biomechanics of vision. What is looking at the picture? 17th century composition theory or a set of eyeballs? Eyeballs. So what should I pay attention to? Eyeballs. Here's how the eye works. It goes to a pattern that it recognizes first in the area of light, then to dark. I want you to watch a trend here. It then goes from high contrast to low contrast. What is contrast? Bueller? The ratio between light and dark, okay? It goes from high sharpness to low sharpness. What is sharpness, or specifically unsharpness? And if we want to get really technical, the Craik-O'Brien corn-sweet edge illusion. What is that? What is unsharpness in a computer? The introduction of contrast to the edges of things. The human eye is a contrast beast. It works on varying degrees of contrast. It then goes from in focus to blur, which is different than high to low sharpness, high saturation of color to low saturation of color, which is another form of contrast. Warm colors move forward in a picture, cool colors recede in a picture. So my job is to control your eye and where it goes, because the most important thing to keep in mind is that the human eye doesn't want to look at anything. It's always in a seek mode. Women understand this concept better than men. You're out on a date, a pretty woman walks in, what does the guy do? Always in a seek mode. So my job is to create a situation where you can't stop looking at the photograph. It's my picture, right? I decide where the viewer's eye goes, based on being true to the emotional moment that took me. So how do I do that? Well, I use the middle part, software, to control how things go about. Contrast, sharpness, light, dark, detail enhancement, detail degradation, blur. All of these things are things that I try to do. Now, what I have found is in-camera blur is better than digital blur, so what I try to do is create images that will give me the varying levels of blur that I want and the varying levels of sharpness that I want. That there's a point where I start looking at the picture as image structure. Now, there are two schools of thought. There's a school of thought, Ansel Adams' school of thought, which says that without pre-visualization, the zone system is just a five-finger exercise. So you need to pre-visualize the photograph. And then there is Paul Caponegro's school of thought, which is if you believe in pre-visualization, you deserve what you get. Both are correct. You don't want to walk into a situation pre-visualizing what picture you're going to take, because all you're ever going to do is be disappointed, because the picture that you're dreaming to see will never occur. What I pre-visualize when I walk into shoot, I pre-visualize being amazed. The moment I fire the shutter, at that moment, I start pre-visualizing the finished picture. When I was a kid growing up, see, I turned that right. There was a poster that my father had of a Saturday Evening Post cover called The Connoisseur, and it's a picture of a Jackson Pollock scribble, and there's this guy standing like this, holding a bowler hat and a pair of gloves looking at this Jackson Pollock scribble. Every time I take a picture, the ones that really grab me, in that moment, in my head, I put the picture in that frame with that guy looking at it. And so when I'm working on the image in post-processing software, for me, what it is removing everything that is not that picture. What Michelangelo said about sculpting. He viewed the sculpture, the rock, as a living stone, and he removed everything that was not the sculpture, and he freed the sculpture from the rock. The file is the living file, and what I do is I free my vision of the image from that file. And the thing you have to keep in mind when you're working on an image is that that magenta kind of puke yellow, low contrast file you're looking at, that's a raw file, that's the cleanest the data will ever be. Everything that you do to that file, from that moment forward, you're clipping data. And the minute you clip data, you introduce artifact, correct? We all know that. Now, artifacting is both cumulative and maybe multiplicative. And the goal is to, and this always sounds like a Disney song to me, to minimize the cumulative and negate the multiplicative. Can you see that like being a Disney song? And so the trick is in how you post-process the image so that you negate the multiplication aspects of artifacting and you just deal with cumulative and you work at minimizing it, which is why I use the tools I use and which is why I build things in layers instead of putting it all on one layer. I have many layers. It's not because I like to give myself busy work. It's because I like to make it so that I can blow the picture up 16 feet if I want to, because I minimize the artifact. The key elements of a photograph: light, gesture, color. That's Maisel. And if you're not familiar with Jay Maisel, you should look him up. I think he's probably the greatest breathing photographer we have. Mine, because I can't leave well enough alone: light, gesture, color, and time. Specifically, timeless. If you can create a photograph where you have no idea when it was shot, those are truly the most successful photographs. Here's a couple of things that I've learned. Timeless in a city happens 4 stories and above. Go to San Francisco. Next time you're in San Francisco, look at where the banners end for, you know, the Giants or the next exhibition at whatever gallery. Look at where all the neon ends. It ends at the bottom of the 3rd floor at the beginning of the 4th floor. If you shoot from the 4th floor up, what you see is the age of the city when those buildings were when the buildings were shot, excuse me. First thing. There's another thing. There's a photographer named Dwino, and I used to look at his work, and he was one of those photographers for me, which whenever I looked at his pictures, it was, I'm not worthy. I should go find a job where I say, would you like fries with that? I mean, just not worthy to take a picture. His work was so amazing. His backgrounds were so incredible. So I did something that guys don't normally do. I read the book instead of looked at the book. I read the instructions. And he had one quote that just stuck with me. I find the stage and the players come. Brilliant. What the man would do is he would go find the background, set the camera up, get it all set, sit down, have a cup of coffee, and wait for stuff to walk into his picture. That's brilliant. That's absolutely the best way to shoot, because the background is as important as the foreground, and if your background is interesting and then you have an in-focus subject, the picture's even more compelling and interesting. So I would invite you to consider, in your quest for how do you make them better, find the stage and the players will come. Pay attention to the background as much as you pay attention to the foreground. What's more important in a photograph? The light or the subject? What do you think? Subject? Okay. Do you know what the word photography means? Yeah, photographies, to write with light. What would you rather look at? The Taj Mahal, poorly lit, or a line of clothing beautifully lit? Treat light as if it was a solid object, okay? It's as important to the photograph, if not more important to the photograph, sometimes than the subject itself. If the light is beautiful, all sorts of wonderful things happen. Now here's one for you. What's the fastest thing in the universe? Unless you're a Trekkie, then it's tachyons. Right? Okay. Doesn't it amaze you that dark always seems to be there before light? Doesn't that trip you out? Now, yes, light is the fastest thing that we know of in the universe, but dark in a photograph is as important to the photograph as light. And the way in which I remember that, that's Terry Pratchett came up with that quote, is that dark is always there before it. I need to have dark in my photograph to have drama, to have contrast, to control the ideas of the picture. I need to have in focus, I need to have blur. These are the elements that I work with. That's why these lenses are my brushes. These cameras, because of the different resolutions, become my canvas that I paint on, because I pick the camera that I'm going to use based on what is the needs of what it is that I'm going to do. Now, I want to show you some pictures of flowers in which almost all of them are multiple photographs. And what I want you to pay attention to, and this concept is image harvesting. You've heard of high dynamic range, right? Or how to make your picture look like a Harry Potter set. This is EXDR, extending the dynamic range of everything. You can extend the dynamic range of time. You can extend the dynamic range of focus. You can extend the dynamic range of blur. You can extend the dynamic range of sharpness. You can extend the dynamic range of color, in addition to extending the dynamic range of exposure. You have to look at what it is you want to say, what it is that you want to leave. What is the best thing of you, if not the images you leave behind? What is going to outlast you? It is the imagery that you leave behind if you choose photography as the way in which you choose to express yourself. Because there are many other ways to express yourself. You've picked this one, right? So this is the best of who you are here. This is the culmination of everything you are as a person. You put in a photograph. It's your sensibility. That's what matters. So give it the care and give it the attention and create the image that moves the viewer the same way you were moved. So in this next grouping, we're going to take a look at our flowers. Now, I became known for my flowers, and the funny story about them is I don't really like or dislike them. Why I started shooting flowers was when I was beta testing cameras, they don't talk back. And I would get cameras where the menus would be in Japanese, and I don't speak or read Japanese. So all you have to do is give a flower a little water, and we're done. So it wound up that in the course of doing these things, I made some discoveries about photography and focus. So let's take a look at these. And what I want you to keep in mind when you look at this is another thing that I invite you to consider, which is shoot your portraits as landscapes and your landscapes like portraits. That it's the cross-pollination of the two disciplines that inhabit your photographs. That, yes or no, are these the portraits of the flower? Now, one of the secrets that I have to photographing flowers is that they're all alive. None of them are cut flowers. One of the things, I had a friend of mine who does a lot of flower photography. I'd look at his work, and I just couldn't put my finger on what it was that bugged me about it. It just, something bugged me. It was beautiful, well composed, but there was just, you know. So I was photographing a pink flower out in front of my house, and it was moving, and I figured, well, I'll have a clamp, and I have this little alligator clip thing, and what I'll do is I'll just pluck it, and I'll put it in the alligator clamp. And so I'm looking at it through the lens, and I'm seeing the flower do this, right? And I pluck it, and then it went like that in front of me. Still a flower, it still maintained its shape, but something left it. And I realized that the thing that I didn't like about his flowers was that he was photographing corpses. So what I do when I photograph a flower is that, first off, they're all alive, which I think there's just, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about it. The next thing is, and let's take a look at, let's see if I have this set up right. This image right here. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shots. Does it look like 9 shots? Because what I'm looking at is, what is the journey of the eye that I want? How do I want you to go through this picture? And what's the pretty thing about this photograph? It's the blur. The blur is the pretty thing. So I want to take a look at that. Now, I'm going to show you 2 pictures here, and then this is in the next slideshow. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Right, but unless I told you, you wouldn't know that that was impossible, because this is what actually should occur. I'm either going to get this kid, or I'm going to get that kid, but I'm not going to get both kids. And as wonderful as this experience was for me, this isn't a wonderful picture in that, yeah, it's a nice snapshot. Great, you had a good vacation? Those are fun kids. What I want is, I want to be able to tell this story. I've removed that which would be disturbing to you based on the way in which the eye wants to see the picture, because you would see both of these kids in focus. Now, how do you get there? This is for you. Practice. I practice at, oh, there you are. I knew it was somewhere. What I practice at is being able to bam, 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 bam. So it's click, 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 click. Okay, he just has to be 99% in focus. He has to be at 100% in focus. Even if the emotional moment is a nanosecond off on him, that's okay, because it's still within the arc. Where do you practice being able to shoot like that? While you're there, or driving your cat, your spouse, your kids, and all your friends crazy. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Understand this as well as you understand yourself. You will know the outcome of every photograph. You need to be like the Borg. Literally, it's like this. Resistance is futile. And the other thing you have to do is, you got to work in such a way, this is for you, and this is for you, that you have to work in such a way that you can make it so that the camera disappears. I've been taking photographs since I was 7. That's when I started taking pictures. This is my favorite story to tell. I sold my first photograph when I was 9. This sounds like, whoa, right? I sold it to a local newspaper for 50 bucks. So you're 9 years old, 50 bucks is add a couple of zeros, right? I took my dad out to lunch. We went to Woolworths, which doesn't exist anymore, had 2 Frankfurters each. He had a cup of coffee, I had a chocolate shake, we shared fries, and like my dad, I left a $1 tip. And for the entire 9 to 10 years, I kept saying to my dad, you know, I got that $50. And there was one point where, like, kid, you spent that $50 years ago. But I've been taking pictures since I was 9. So for me, all of this is an extension. And there was a book about mastery. And mastery comes at 10,000 hours. You beat yourself up sometimes because you don't know it as well as the pictures that you fell in love with. And the reason why you don't know your camera as well as the person who shot the pictures that you fell in love with is that they probably have a head start on you. Which brings us back to always carry a camera and drive everybody around you nuts. And learn how to shoot flowers because they don't talk back.
In your presentations, you're using a cross dissolve between all the images. I'm wondering if it was sort of intentional in the way you ordered them, and if you feel like the prior image impacts the way we visualize the next image.
Why can't every one of my conversations be like this? Yes, that's called landscaping. So what happens is I make conscious choices about how they intertwine. They're not random. Reason why I use cross dissolve is because that's the least visually offensive and least gimmicky looking transition. You know, like you get the spinning box or the breaking up into this or the rippling water effect. It's like, great. It's like there are pieces of software that shall remain nameless and operating systems that shall remain nameless that introduce, like when I use my Cintiq or a pen and I click on the screen, I get a ripple. Or if I move an image, it goes. You know, if I wanted to play a video game, if I wanted Star Wars, so it's like in UI design, if I can put that out there, one of the things that I love about the Google splash page is the philosophy of the Google splash page, which is don't muck it up. It's a great idea. It's like in UI design, clean, simple, it's about the image, it's not about finding my image underneath the user interface. So the way in which things get designed here always appeals to me as a visual artist because it's the canvas I work on. You're in support of my work. You're not the art form, you're the form that supports the art form. And that's a brilliant way of looking at things, I think. And I applaud that. And so don't stop doing that, please. But yes, for you, the answer is I picked that dissolve because it's the simplest and everything moves because it all tells a story. Where the first slideshow was set up, how it went from San Francisco to New York to Paris, and then that last shot leads into the flowers that lead into the portrait, which is the landscapes as portraits. So I'm trying to reinforce the idea. Everything matters. Everything dovetails into everything else. The answer to the question is always yes. If you say to yourself, do you think the order of my pictures matter? What's the answer? Yes. Should I shoot 2 more shots? Yes. Do you think? Yes. Yes. Okay. I have a very wise teacher named Viola Spolin. She teaches improv. She created improv as we know. It's called Spolin technique. A very wise woman. Said, at the point at which you say it doesn't matter, is the point at which you say your career or your character doesn't matter. Everything matters. You just don't know what significance is until the large operatic lady sings. So I apply that to this. At the point at which you say it doesn't matter in your image is the point at which you say your image doesn't matter. Everything matters. You just don't know what's significant until you make the last pixel sing. So the job is to consider everything. Some things are more important than others, but consider everything. Which leads to, I used to have hair down to here, now I have no hair. Because I'm worrying about every little thing. So that when I put the photograph up, what is not there is any reason to take you out of the experience. That the landscaping of the photograph matters. Now I'm going to show you something, why infrared is way cool. This is a picture of a young girl Now, this is shot infrared, and all three of the pictures that I'm going to show you were shot with the same camera, one modified for infrared, one not modified for infrared, using the same lens. And the shot was done this: click, click, click. Okay? See this? Pretty, right? Pretty, right? Exactly. Not that it's not pretty, but there's a profound difference between this and this. What do you think that is? Eyes, what else? It's the glow. Okay? What you're looking at is near visible spectrum light. Light you can't see, but you can feel or you are aware of. I can't explain this, and forgive me if I sound like an airy-fairy artist because, well, I'm about to become an airy-fairy artist. It's as if there's another universe I'm photographing that I can't see, that when I photograph it feels like I'm looking at something that happened 100 years ago. It's the wildest thing. It's why I fell in love with infrared. You're photographing near visible spectrum, and you're photographing some small degree of heat. But to truly photograph infrared, you need to cool down the sensor. But that's what causes the glow, I think, is the heat aspect of the light. That's just me guessing, so I'm not basing that on anything other than having shot it for 8 years and looking at it. I'd like to show you one last show. And I'd like to show you this so that you can see what it's like to shoot things at street level, and pay attention to the buildings because I want you to tell me what year they were shot in. Thank you so much for your time.